would a dumpling, by any other name, taste as sweet? Or, I guess in this case, savory. Well, today we're going to answer old Billy Shakespeare's point of pontification, because while you probably haven't heard of Vareniki, you might know it by its Polish name, Pierogi. This dish likely originated from the Mongolians, who brought it into Kievan Rus, whose modern-day capital is Kiev, and from there it was disseminated into the rest of Europe. In fact, pierogi comes from an ancient Slavonic word, pirog, which meant feast, and that's why the Russians have pirog, pierogi, which are similar to vareniki, except they're bigger and baked. Oh golly, I love when food, culture, and language all come together.
You know everything about food.
I mean, I don't think anyone will ever know everything about food. It's an evolving discipline.
That's so boring.
You can put almost anything into vareniki. Today we're going to be making two versions. One that's savory with a meat filling, not too traditional, and another sweet with a cheese filling. Most vareniki are made with potatoes, but I think that if you put a starch inside of a starch, you're a war criminal.
Welcome to Ukraine.
And also, I know that this dish is made in grocery stores all across the world. But leave that frozen shit in your dorm room in your dirty bachelor pad, because I'm going to teach you how to make this stuff from scratch. So pour yourself a beer and get ready to cover your kitchen in flour, because we're going to make vareniki. Smacznego. To make the dough for vareniki, you'll need flour, water, egg, salt, and olive oil. What you fill your vareniki with is up to your personal preference. Here I have ground pork with a very high fat content, but a 50-50 mix of beef and pork is also quite common. Caramelized onions, pork cracklings, dill, and sour cream are the most common sides and toppings for savory vareniki. If you're making the cheese dumplings, then you'll need farmer's cheese or a dry cottage cheese, honey and or sugar, 1 beaten egg, a dollop of sour cream. I think that ricotta would actually work incredibly well in making a savory cheese dumpling over the traditional tvorog or cottage cheese. Serve sweet dumplings with jam or preserves, sour cream, and a drizzle of honey. As I mentioned before, these dumplings can have almost anything in them, so feel free to experiment with seasonal products. Fruits and berries, especially cherries, make for the best version of sweet vareniki you'll ever try. And forest mushrooms and onions make for a delicious and meaty dumpling dripping with the flavors of autumn. In this dish, most of the effort and work will come from making the dough and then shaping the dumplings themselves. It can be quite time consuming and even at times infuriating, but who are we kidding? We all have a little extra time on our hands these days.
He's got busy! Worky work, busy bee!
Mix the flour and water in a bowl until it just starts to come together. Then you'll add 1 beaten egg, the salt, and olive oil. Mix in a bowl until it comes together into a workable, shaggy dough. Since dumpling wrappers use low hydration dough, feel free to work this out on any workable surface. It shouldn't be too sticky. Knead vigorously for 8 to 12 minutes until the dough is smooth and slightly tacky to the touch, but not dry or sticky. It should quite literally feel like fresh Play-Doh or clay. Once the dough comes together, wrap in plastic wrap and let sit in the fridge for 30 minutes to an hour, just to make sure it thoroughly hydrates. Just a quick tip out there for any vegans watching this. If you want, you can substitute the egg in the dough for 50 grams of water, and then feel free to experiment with any fillings. Typically, there's cabbage, spinach, mushrooms, or the horrible potato. You know, if you want potato inside of your dough, it's your life. I can't tell you what to do. Just feel free to experiment. It's a great dish for vegans. Sauté onions in a pan and remove to put into your ground meat filling. As a condiment, sauté bacon and onions to make pork crackling toppings for your dumplings. As with our cepelene dish, you must season your meat. So many dumplings served in Eastern Europe taste like they were filled with that weird space gruel they ate in the Matrix. I used some green onions, sauteed and raw yellow onion, parsley, grated garlic, mustard powder, garlic powder, sweet chili flakes, fresh cracked pepper, and salt. Mix until well combined. For the cheese dumplings, combine cottage cheese, a beaten egg, sugar, honey, and a bit of sour cream. Everyone knows the best sour cream has a cartoon cat or farm animal. But wait, that cat looks familiar. Yeah, that's what I thought. Combine and mix thoroughly. Sugar and honey to taste. Pull the dough from the fridge and remove the cling film. It should be slightly tacky to the touch, but still exceptionally easy to manipulate on a well-floured surface. This dough recipe will make roughly 45 to 55 vareniki, depending upon how you portion them out. To make the dough easier to work with, I break it down into quarters and then put half of the dough back into the fridge until needed. Taking 1/4 of the dough, work it out into a long snake of, well, dough. I don't need any comments as to what this looks like. Yes, I'm well aware. Make sure that the dough is equal in girth along the entire length of the dough. Again, no comments, please. Once rolled out, portion the dough into little equally sized pillows. About the size of a large gnocchi should be good. Now to the good stuff, making the dumpling itself. Taking a small portion, gently shape it with your fingers into a hockey puck of dough. It should look a little bit like a scallop. Then, with a well-floured rolling pin, roll out the dough. Flip, rotate, and roll out again. This should create a roughly circular, evenly sized dumpling wrapper. Now make a divot between your thumb and forefinger and lay the dumpling wrapper over it, creating a pocket for the filling. Gently add your filling of choice, careful not to tear the wrapper. Now you want to gently fold in half, making sure that the two sides properly align before sealing shut. Once closed, you can work your thumb around the edges of the dumpling, firmly sealing it shut while gently pushing the filling into the center. This might take a bit of practice, no one gets it right the first time, just don't give up. Now repeat this process over and over and over until you slowly yet most assuredly slip into dumpling madness, where by the end of it you're covered head to toe in flour and slightly out of touch with reality.
It's delicious.
If you find the normal way of sealing a dumpling shut too pedestrian, you can try and curl crimp the edges. I did this to create a visual distinction between the meat and cheese dumplings. Take a small portion of a dumpling by the rim, flip it over, and squeeze it shut firmly. Repeat along the entire edge of the dumpling. If you're using the cheese filling, make sure it's been drained of excess liquid. Again, this takes a bit of practice. Don't give up. Now our dumplings are ready to face the drowned god. Gently drop them into a pot of boiling water. Careful to add them one at a time and spread them out so they aren't crowding each other. Let boil. They will float when the wrappers are done cooking, and let them cook for just a little bit longer to ensure that the filling is also cooked through. Serve while warm and top with your choice of goodies. The sweet dumplings are great with a drizzle of honey, served with jam and cream. The meat dumplings are great topped with dill, onion, pork cracklings, green onion, and also served with sour cream. Uncooked dumplings can be put on a tray into the freezer until firm, then transferred to your storage container of choice. If frozen, they cook the same way. Drop them directly into boiling water and they'll float when cooked. Trust me when I say that I've had my fair share of vareniki, and then some. While it can be a slightly underwhelming dish, these meat-filled vareniki were far and away the best I've ever had. The stuffing was light and flavorful, and the dough was perfectly cooked, and not too thick or gummy. Experimenting a bit with seasoning created a bright and exciting dumpling that celebrated the flavors and spirit of Eastern Europe. The cheese dumplings were quite nice, but I for one am not partial to sweet dumplings. Jam and honey for this are a must. If I were to make this again, I think I'd go off book and try them with ricotta and spinach. Maybe it was the combination of eating sweet and savory together, which I don't recommend, that was a bit unsatisfying. Still good though. So there you go guys, a basic and easily adaptable dumpling recipe that will fit any and all personal preferences. From the humble and beloved potato dumpling to the elevated and more experimental fish-filled dumplings. Vareniki allow for a great deal of experimentation, so feel free to go your own way and let me know what you come up with in the comments below. Until next time, eat well friends.
Happy end!